The same daughter who once said I was an embarrassment now stands in awe just like everyone else. It happened on a Thursday evening. Senior night. The school auditorium packed wall to wall with bright lights, cell phone flashes, proud smiles, and echoing applause. Mothers clutched bouquets. Fathers held signs. Students buzzed with excitement. And me? I walked in slowly, confidently, deliberately. Heels clicking. Silence rising behind me like a wave. Eyes turned. Whispers followed. Then her face. Frozen. Confused. And something else. A flicker of realization. That woman walking into the spotlight? That's my mother. The same woman she once begged to park 2 blocks away. The same woman she begged not to speak in front of her friends. The same woman she said she wished was someone else. But now? Now she looked at me like she didn't even recognize me. And maybe she didn't. Because she never saw what I buried to keep her world spinning. She never noticed what it cost me to keep smiling while breaking. She never asked why her mother was always tired, always quiet, always shrinking. But I remember. I remember the way her friends laughed when I showed up at school in my oversized cardigan, hair in a bun, holding a handmade lunch bag and a hopeful smile. I remember the sting of her silence when I waved at her from the crowd, and she pretended not to see me. I remember crying alone in my car on her birthday, on Mother's Day, on nights she told me she'd rather go home with someone else's mom. I remember it all. But what she didn't know, what no one saw, was that I was keeping a promise. To myself. That one day, I would become the woman she couldn't ignore. The woman she'd talk about, not with shame but with pride. And as the applause faded and the stage grew still, every step I took felt heavier than the last. Not because of fear, not because of nerves, but because every step carried years of silence, sacrifice, and a truth that had waited long enough. She had called me invisible, but that night, I walked into the light, and she finally saw me. But what she didn't know, what no one in that room knew, was that this moment, this wasn't a comeback. This was the reveal of a story that started long before this night, with a mother, a daughter, and a wound no one ever thought would speak. And now it's time to tell you the truth. Before the high heels, before the tailored dresses and the headlines, before anyone cared who I was or who I would become, I was just Samantha. Not Samantha the style icon. Not Samantha the speaker. Not Samantha the woman everyone suddenly wanted to be friends with. Just Samantha the mother. The one who got left behind. I was 28 when I found out I was pregnant. I was 29 when he left. He said fatherhood wasn't what he imagined. Said he felt trapped. He packed a bag while I made dinner, and by dessert we were alone. From that moment on it was just me and Ava. And I made a promise to her. That I would love her so fiercely, so completely, that she would never feel the absence of the man who walked out of her life like she was furniture. And I meant it. But what no one told me was that pouring everything you are into another person doesn't just empty your cup, it shatters it. I worked 3 jobs. Mornings as a receptionist. Evenings cleaning offices. Weekends I worked the counter at the diner 3 towns over because the tips were better. Some nights I fell asleep in the car before even pulling out of the parking lot. Other nights I stayed up sewing patches into her clothes so she'd never feel different at school. I skipped meals. Skipped birthdays. Skipped sleep. Also Ava could have the life I dreamed of but never got. And for a while it felt like enough. But then middle school came. And with it, attitude, image, judgment. Suddenly, my devotion wasn't beautiful. It was embarrassing. I became that mom, the one in worn-out sneakers. The one with frizzy hair, discount mascara, and jeans that hadn't fit right since the 2nd trimester. The one who always showed up but was never welcome in the group photos. Ava started to look at me differently. Not with affection, but with calculation. As if she was measuring how far she could push me away without completely cutting the cord. And her friends? They weren't cruel. But they didn't have to be. All it took was one long stare when I dropped off cupcakes. One tight smile when I offered a ride. One quick glance at my outfit to make me wish I had stayed in the car. I remember one day in particular. It was career day. The school asked parents to come speak about their jobs. I wasn't going to volunteer. I didn't think answering phones and wiping down break room counters counted as a career, but Ava came home with a slip she had crumpled in her pocket. I asked her if she wanted me to come. She didn't even look up. She just said, "Please don't. Just don't." That night, I folded the slip and tucked it into the drawer with the birthday cards I never gave her. And I told myself it was just a phase. But the truth? The truth was harder. Because deep down I knew I had disappeared inside motherhood. So far in, I didn't even recognize myself in the mirror anymore. There were days I didn't speak to anyone but her. Days I didn't laugh. Weeks I didn't feel beautiful. I became a ghost who cooked, cleaned, and showed up. Always at the back of the room, always hoping she'd turn around and smile. But she never did. Not once. She told people I was too sensitive. Too weird. She once told a teacher I was her aunt, not her mom. She laughed about it. I cried in the parking lot. I wish I could say I stood up for myself. I wish I had marched into her room and demanded respect. But I didn't. I blamed myself. I thought, maybe if I lost some weight she'd be proud of me. Maybe if I bought better clothes, spoke differently, acted more like the other moms, maybe then she'd let me sit beside her. But no matter how hard I tried, I always felt like I was trying to earn love I had already given freely. I never said a word, because in my mind this was still motherhood. And motherhood meant staying silent for their sake. But what I didn't know, what even Ava didn't know, was that something was beginning to change. Quietly. Slowly. Like breath returning to lungs that had been holding in pain for too long. I didn't plan to take back my life. I didn't even think I could. But pain has a way of collecting, until one day it spills. And that day was closer than anyone imagined. It didn't happen all at once. It started with shorter answers, then eye rolls, then long silences in the car on the way home from school. First I thought it was just hormones, middle school, peer pressure, maybe a bad grade. But one morning, I asked her if she wanted me to braid her hair like I used to. She pulled away like I'd touched fire. "No offense, Mom, but your style is kinda outdated." That was the first sting. Small, sharp, easy to brush off. But then came the second one, and the third. And then they stopped being stings and started to scar. She began to idolize other moms. You know the type. The ones who showed up to PTA meetings in yoga pants that cost more than my car payment. They had glossy ponytails, white teeth, and perfect tans even in January. They smelled like lavender and sounded like luxury. They brought quinoa muffins to school events. I brought banana bread wrapped in foil. It wasn't a fair fight. And I was never even in the ring. One day, while volunteering to set up a fundraiser table, I overheard her talking to her friends behind the auditorium curtain. They didn't know I was there. I wish I hadn't been. One of them asked, "Is that your mom in the floral vest?" Ava laughed and said, "She's like a lunch lady who never left the kitchen." They all laughed. I froze. Felt my hands gripping the edge of the table so tightly that I almost crushed the paper name tags. That night, I went home and stood in front of the mirror. I stared at that same floral vest for a long time. I didn't cry. I just stared, like I was looking at a woman I had failed. And somehow that woman was me. But it didn't stop there. It became routine. Her reminding me to drop her off a few blocks from school. Asking me not to come to certain events. Changing into a different outfit the second she left the house. Correcting me when I pronounced something wrong in front of her friends. Smiling stiffly in photos, then cropping me out before she posted them. One day she came home with a new phone. Said a friend gave it to her. I didn't ask questions. I was too tired. Weeks later, while I was doing laundry, I knocked her phone off the bed by accident. It lit up. An alert, at Mom Cringe has 47 new likes. I thought it was a meme page. I wish it was. Clicked it open. The profile picture was a distorted cartoon version of me. In one post, she had zoomed in on a photo of me from the school hallway, wearing a large sun hat and wide-legged jeans. The caption read, "Why is my mom giving strong cafeteria energy every time she picks me up?" Loudly crying face. Another post showed a candid of me from behind, shopping in a thrift store. Caption, "When your mom thinks she's quirky, but it's just giving Goodwill grandma." Hundreds of likes. Dozens of comments. Mostly from kids I baked cupcakes for. Laughed with. Given rides home in the rain. Some wrote, "OMG, why does she dress like she's from Little House on the Prairie?" Others added, "No way I'd let my mom walk me to school looking like that." I sat on the floor. And for a long time I didn't move. There were no tears at first. Just this slow, growing tightness in my chest. A dull humming pain that pressed in from every side. I wanted to believe it wasn't real. That she didn't mean it. That it was some kind of joke. But then I remembered the time she pulled away when I tried to fix her hair. The day she called me her aunt. The time she corrected the way I said, avocado. It wasn't a joke. It was a version of the truth I had refused to see. She wasn't just embarrassed by me. She was ashamed of me. And that shame, it wasn't something she learned alone. Somewhere along the line, the world taught her that what I was wasn't enough. I let it teach her that. Because I was too tired, too worn, too buried inside survival mode to notice the pieces of myself she had begun to disown. That night I turned off the phone, folded the laundry, and went to bed without speaking. I stared at the ceiling for hours. The weight of my silence heavier than anything I'd ever carried. But deep in my chest something shifted. It wasn't rage. It wasn't revenge. It was the seed of a promise. She could mock me, erase me, try to turn me into a punchline. But I would not stay small forever. And one day, she would look for me. Not to mock, not to hide, but to follow. If this part broke your heart like it broke mine, hit that like button so I know I'm not alone. And drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. Let's talk about it. I kept it to myself for 3 days. The fake account, the comments, the laughter. 3 days of pretending I didn't see. Didn't hurt. Didn't wake up in the middle of the night just to check if it was still there. And when I finally said something, I didn't scream. Didn't accuse. I just asked, Ava, can we talk about something? She looked up from her phone, barely blinking. I sat on the edge of the couch, the laundry basket between us. My fingers clenched a towel I hadn't folded yet. I asked her if the account was hers. I asked her why. She didn't deny it. Didn't even pretend to be confused. Instead she sighed, rolled her eyes, and said, "You just don't get it. You're embarrassing." Just like that. Like she was saying I'd left the milk out. Like it was obvious. Expected. I sat there frozen. My throat tightening around words that wouldn't come. "Why?" I whispered. She shook her head and snapped. "Because you try too hard. You dress weird. You talk weird. You post quotes like you're somebody." And then the dagger. "I wish you could just be like other moms. Other moms. Like the ones in the yoga pants. The ones with flawless lashes and wine clubs. The ones whose lives didn't come with wrinkles and worn-out soles." I didn't say anything back. Because there are no words for the kind of silence that lives between a mother and a child in moments like that. So I just nodded. And went back to folding laundry. Me folding Ava's jeans. Refolding the same shirt 3 times without realizing. Turning off the washing machine with tears running down my face. Catching my reflection in the microwave and not recognizing the woman staring back. That night I sat in my room with the door closed. Lights off. Just me and a sketchbook I hadn't opened in 20 years. Inside were pages of dreams. Sketches of dresses I once believed I'd designed for runways. Notes about color theory. Fabric swatches still taped beside the pencil lines. Faded but intact. That version of me. The one with ambition, imagination, and light in her eyes. She lived here. On these pages. She hadn't died. She had just been buried. Under years of compromise. Years of maybe next time. Years of loving everyone but myself. The next morning I did something small. I took off the oversized hoodie I wore every day. I pulled on a dress I hadn't worn in years, one with soft pleats and a sunflower pattern at the hem. I brushed my hair out instead of tying it up. Added a little lip gloss from the back of the drawer. I didn't look like a different woman, but I looked like someone trying. I walked Ava to school. She looked at me once, up and down, and muttered under her breath, "Are you serious?" That was all.
No complement. No smile.
Just a shrug of disapproval that knocked me back harder than any slap. When we arrived at the gate, she didn't say goodbye. She opened the car door, got out, and slammed it shut. I sat there in the driver's seat, holding the steering wheel like it was the only thing keeping me from breaking apart. For a split second, I thought about chasing after her. Apologizing. Changing clothes. Going back to that hoodie. But something held me still. Maybe it was pride. Maybe it was anger. Maybe it was the voice of that young girl in my sketchbook, whispering, "Don't apologize for showing up." Later that week, Ava came home late. I didn't ask where she'd been. She didn't offer. But I heard her talking in her room, to someone on FaceTime. I paused outside the door when I heard my name. She laughed, said, "Yeah, she's trying this new look now. I swear she thinks she's cool or something. It's kinda sad." Then the other voice. "OMG, post it." Ava laughed harder. I didn't need to open the door. I didn't need to see the post. I had already seen enough. And still, I said nothing. Because I wasn't ready to fight. I was still breaking. Still collecting pieces of myself that had scattered across years of sacrifice. But something had started. A pulse. A quiet push. A stirring in the place I had once buried every version of myself that Ava and the world said was too much. They called it embarrassing. But what I was becoming was unstoppable. Wait, did you see that coming? If your jaw dropped like mine did, tap the subscribe button right now and ring that notification bell, because what happens next will leave you speechless. There's a kind of breaking that doesn't come with noise.
No screaming. No slamming doors.
Just a soundless unraveling. In a place no one can see. Mine happened in a dressing room. A mall. Off the interstate. Fluorescent lights. Cheap carpet. A clearance rack marked final sale. I had wandered into the store without planning to. I just needed a moment. Away from home. Away from Ava. Away from the silence between us that had grown into something heavy. I picked out a dress. Red. Too bold for me, but something about it called to the version of me that used to dare. I stepped into the dressing room and tried it on. It didn't fit. Zipper stuck. Waist too tight. My arms felt heavy. The mirror too close. The light too harsh. I stared at myself. The woman in the reflection wasn't just tired. She looked erased. Like she'd spent years being useful, and now no longer knew how to be seen. And then, I heard them. 2 teenage girls outside the door trying on prom dresses. They laughed light, sharp laughter that pierced right through the thin walls. One said, "I just saw that lady in the red dress. The one with the weird shoes," the other giggled. "She looks like someone's sad aunt trying to look young again." I froze. My hands dropped to my sides. And the zipper. I let it stay stuck. They weren't being cruel. Not intentionally. They were just young. But their words wrapped around my ribcage like vines, tightening until I couldn't breathe. I sat down on the bench inside that tiny dressing room, the hem of the red dress brushing my knees. My eyes welled up, but I didn't cry. Not yet. A soft knock broke the silence. "Mom? You okay in there?" It was an older saleswoman. White hair pulled into a loose braid. Ice kind. Hands weathered. I tried to respond, but the words caught in my throat. She waited. And then she said something I'll never forget. Something that cut through the noise in my head with quiet clarity. "You don't need their approval. You need your reflection back." Just like that. She didn't say it with pity, or with the false cheer that some people use to patch over discomfort. She said it like a woman who had once lived this same moment. And survived it. I nodded. Finally got the zipper down. Hung the dress back on the hook. And walked out of that store with more than what I came with. I left the shame behind. That night I sat in front of the mirror for a long time.
No makeup. No filters.
Just me. And the faint echo of a woman I hadn't looked at in years. I asked myself one question. What would you do if you didn't need to disappear anymore? A week later I made a call. Not to Ava. Not to a friend. To a therapist. Her name was Clarissa. She spoke softly. Listened closely. Never rushed me. For the first few sessions I just sat there and cried. There weren't even words, just years of exhaustion escaping my lungs in silence. She never made me feel weak, only human. Therapy became a doorway, and once I stepped through, I kept going. I started walking every morning, not for weight loss but for clarity. I lit a candle in the evenings and sat still, even if just for 5 minutes. I bought lotion that smelled like vanilla. I played old songs I used to love in the kitchen while making dinner. Little things. But they felt like oxygen. Then one day, Clarissa handed me a flyer after a session. A local women's group. Empower Her. Wednesdays at 6:30. I almost didn't go. But I did. I sat in the back at first. Just listened. Women of all ages talking about boundaries, about guilt, about starting over after being left, forgotten, dismissed. They didn't try to fix each other. They just held space. And that's where I met her. Jordan. Tall. Fierce. Buzzed haircut. Eyes that saw through your mask in 5 seconds flat. She was a life coach. A stylist. But mostly she was a mirror. Not the kind that shows you what's wrong. The kind that shows you what's left. Jordan walked up to me after my second session. "You have good bones," she said, tapping the air near my cheekbones, "but you've been dressing like you're apologizing for existing." I laughed. A real laugh. "First one in months," she said. "You need to return." And so I did. One small step at a time. Ava didn't notice. Or maybe she did but pretended not to. Either way, I didn't do it for her. Not anymore. Because something was shifting. Not in the world. In me. And for the first time in a long time. That was enough. It wasn't a glow-up. It was a return. A slow, messy, wonderful return to a woman I'd forgotten. A woman I thought motherhood had swallowed whole. We called it Project Me. Jordan came up with the name. She wrote it on the top of a notebook she handed me one evening after group. It wasn't fancy. Just a simple line journal with a soft blue cover. But it became my blueprint for something I couldn't even name at the time. It started with the smallest shift. Food. Not dieting. Not punishment. Just nourishment. Jordan introduced me to a nutritionist she worked with, Tasha, a mom of 4 who used to binge chips in her car between errands just to have 5 minutes alone. Tasha didn't give me a meal plan. She gave me permission. Permission to eat like someone who deserved to feel good. To choose vegetables because they fueled me, not because I hated my body. We met weekly. I learned how to cook again. For myself. The changes were slow. First, I still skipped breakfast. Still reached for snacks late at night. Still hated drinking water. But then one morning I woke up craving something green. And I smiled because that had never happened before. I didn't join a gym right away. I started by walking. 1 block. Then 2. Then 5. I bought earbuds and made a playlist full of songs I loved when I was younger. Before car seats and calendars took over my life. Every time I walked I felt lighter. Not because of weight. Because of release. Eventually Jordan dragged me to a women's circuit gym. I was terrified. But they didn't judge me. They clapped when I did 2 push-ups. They cheered when I held a plank for 10 seconds. One woman even said, "You've got fire in you." No one had said that in years. Then came the wardrobe. This part was awkward. Jordan took me shopping. First, I hated every second. I didn't know my size. Didn't know what flattered me. Felt like an imposter trying on someone else's life. I'd stand in front of the mirror, tugging at the hem of every blouse. "I look ridiculous," I muttered. Jordan smiled, patient.
No, honey.
"You look unfamiliar." "That's different." She taught me how to layer, how to balance comfort with confidence, how to wear jeans that hugged, not punished, how to use color again. My first real outfit? Wide-leg navy trousers, a tucked-in Russ blouse, and a belt that actually fit my waist. I stood in the mirror and didn't flinch. That night I wore it to a grocery store run just to feel seen. And when the cashier complimented my earrings, I almost cried. Makeup was next. Now that was a comedy show. I didn't know what primer was. I stabbed myself in the eye with mascara. Twice. But YouTube tutorials became my best friend. I'd sit at my little vanity, the desk I used to fold bills on, and follow along, pausing every 2 minutes. One day I tried a bold lipstick. Not red berry. Deep. Rich. Brave. I wore it to therapy. Clarissa smiled. Said nothing. Just nodded. She saw it. And then came the biggest surprise of all. My voice. One night, while cleaning out my closet, I found the old sketchbook again. Same one I'd looked at weeks before. Only this time, I didn't cry. I smiled. I flipped through the pages, tracing the pencil lines of dresses I had once imagined for runways I never walked. But now, I saw something different. A mission. Mothers like me, women like me, had stories in their seams. And no one was telling them. So I made a decision. I scanned the sketches, cleaned them up, wrote captions from the heart. And then I launched a page. at the new shape of her, a quiet little Instagram space for mothers rediscovering the woman underneath the labels. I didn't use my name, didn't show my face at first. I just posted sketches, little notes about self-worth, snippets of my journal. The first post got 4 likes, the second 7. By the 5th post, a message appeared. I thought I was the only one. And just like that, I wasn't alone. Ava didn't notice. Not really. She was too busy with football games, group chats, dance rehearsals. Too busy chasing the girls she wanted to be like. She saw my new clothes once. Raised an eyebrow. Trying something new? That was all.
No compliment.
No mockery this time either. Just confusion. And that was fine. Because I wasn't doing this for her. For the first time in years. I wasn't living to be loved. I was learning to love living. And in that quiet transformation, something beautiful began to form. Not revenge. Not rebranding. But rebirth. The slow reintroduction of a woman with calloused hands, open eyes, and a future she was no longer afraid to claim. It happened on a Tuesday. No warning. Just a post. A caption. A ripple. I was sitting in the break room at the diner on my lunch shift. Had 20 minutes and 2% battery. I opened the Instagram page. Posted a sketch. An older one I'd drawn in the margins of my journal. A woman standing in a mirror, one half of her in house clothes, the other half in a stunning red gown. The caption read, "Dear daughter, one day you'll see me. Not as an errand runner. Not as a background noise. But as the woman I was before the world told me to be small. And I hope when you do, you'll see yourself too." I pressed post. Closed the app. Clocked back in. By the time I checked my phone at 7:18 p.m., the post had over 42,000 likes. Comments flooded in. DMs from mothers, daughters, strangers. I feel seen. This made me cry in the grocery store. Are you inside my heart? Who are you? I didn't respond. I just sat there, phone in hand, tears resting on the edge of my eyes, realizing that for the first time, my words had gone farther than my silence ever had. Within days the page grew. They started calling me the Renaissance Mother. It wasn't a title I claimed, but it fit. Women began using the hashtag Renaissance Mother to post their own transformations, physical, emotional, spiritual. Mothers in sweatpants. Grandmothers in lipstick. Single moms in yoga studios. Widows painting again. Divorced women traveling solo. It became a community. A chorus of women rewriting their stories. Louder than shame, brighter than regret. And all of it happened behind Ava's back. She was still in her own world. Still obsessed with her social circle. Her image. Her feed. She had no idea who I was online. And I didn't tell her. Because this wasn't for her. This was for me. And the women like me who had been erased, cropped out, talked over. But then one day the story caught up. Ava was sitting at the kitchen island scrolling on her phone. She paused. "Oh my God," she said, holding up her screen. "Have you seen this woman? She writes these letters like, I don't know. They feel like something out of a movie." I glanced at the phone. It was my post. The Dear Daughter one. She grinned. "She's like honest. And kind of deep. Everyone in school's talking about her. Who is she?" I didn't answer. I just smiled. A slow knowing smile. The kind that holds back 100 truths and chooses peace instead. Ava kept scrolling. A few days later, I overheard her in the hallway on FaceTime with a friend. "She posted again," she said, excitement in her voice. "This one's about how moms give up their dreams for daughters who won't even look them in the eye. It's wild. I think she's like famous." One afternoon in class, Ava's English teacher brought up the page. Apparently, they were using one of my captions in a lesson on modern prose and narrative voice. The teacher asked if anyone knew who the writer was. Ava raised her hand. She said, "I don't know who she is, but whoever this woman is, she gets it." And in that moment something shifted in me. Not out of pride. Not vengeance. Just release. Because the word she admired had been born from the pain she once caused. And she didn't even know. That night, I sat on the edge of my bed with my sketchbook in my lap and whispered, "One day she'll connect the dots. And when she does, I'll still be standing." Because what I had built wasn't just an Instagram page. It was a mirror. And one day, my daughter would see herself in it. Not the popular version, not the filtered one, but the truth. The legacy of a woman who refused to vanish. Some memories never fade. If you believe some wounds run deeper than time, share this video with someone who understands. And tell me in the comments, have you ever had to forgive someone who didn't deserve it? It was the spring parent-teacher showcase. The kind of event where the gym gets turned into a red carpet for middle school achievements. Science projects lined up, homemade banners, selfie stations, and folding chairs that squeak too loud when you sit. Ava had been practicing a monologue all week. She was nervous. She wanted it perfect. That morning, she hovered at the door before school and said, "Can you, maybe just wear something normal tonight?" I looked up from my coffee. She added quickly, "Not like that kimono thing or those bright pants. Just something plain. Please." I didn't respond. I just nodded. And when the door closed behind her, I smiled. The hours ticked by. I pulled out the outfit Jordan and I had picked weeks ago, just in case. A soft, emerald green jumpsuit. Tailored perfectly. Waist cinched. Sleek neckline. Gold hoop earrings. Minimal makeup. A deep berry lip. The same color Ava once laughed at. I looked in the mirror. Not to ask permission. To give thanks. Because this reflection? She had earned her presence. The gym was full when I arrived. Rows of students buzzing. Parents filing in distracted checking phones. But the moment I stepped through the doors, the air shifted. I didn't rush to sit. I walked. Straight-backed. Measured steps. My heels clicking just enough to draw attention but never beg for it. Heads turned. Murmurs rose. Phones came out, some pretending to check email, others angled for a discreet photo. Ava hadn't seen me yet, but her friends did. I passed a group of girls in glitter sneakers and matching scrunchies. One of them nudged another. Whispered, "Wait, that's Ava's mom." Another girl whispered louder, "She looks like she's famous. Look at her hair, she's glowing." Then a voice from behind, "Wait a second, is that the woman from that page? The Renaissance mother." A pause. Then someone gasped, "Oh my God, it is." And then, Ava looked up. Saw me. She froze mid-sentence while speaking to her teacher. Her jaw didn't drop. She didn't smile. She didn't run. She just stood still, as if her brain was trying to catch up with what her eyes were seeing. She wasn't embarrassed. She was stunned, didn't rush, didn't explain. I opened my arms, pulled her into a soft hug. Her body stiffened at first, then relaxed. A beat passed. I leaned down close to her ear and whispered, "You once said I was an embarrassment. I became the woman you were trying to admire all along." I didn't stay for the whole event. I watched her monologue from the back row, quietly, proudly. She stumbled once during her lines, glanced toward the audience. Our eyes met. And in that second, just 1 second, she smiled. The smallest, quietest smile. But it was real. It wasn't the kind of smile you give because you're trying to fit in. It was the kind you give when you finally see someone as they are. Not who you need them to be. I didn't need applause. Didn't need a confession. Didn't need her to say sorry. Because I didn't do this for revenge. I did it for the girl in the dressing room. For the mom who ate dinner standing up over the sink. For the woman who thought she'd disappeared. And for the daughters who are still learning that their mothers have stories too. Now this is where things change. If you're still watching, you're one of us. The ones who know that quiet women carry the loudest storms. Hit like and share this with someone who loves a good twist. And don't forget to subscribe for more real stories. Ava didn't say anything right away. Not the day of the showcase. Not the day after. But something had shifted. A crack in the wall between us. Subtle but there. She lingered longer in the kitchen. Asked what I was cooking. Laughed once genuinely at one of my jokes. Then one evening 2 weeks later, as I was moisturizing my face in the bathroom, she knocked softly on the door. "Mom." I turned. She was holding her phone. The screen lit up with my page. One of the latest sketches. A mother brushing her daughter's hair. The caption, "Even when you didn't look at me, I never stopped seeing you." She held it up. "It's you, isn't it?" she whispered. I nodded. Quietly. No drama. Just truth. Her lip trembled, and she looked down. I had no idea. I smiled. That's okay. You weren't supposed to. Not at first. That night, we sat in the living room. Just the two of us. The TV was off. No background noise, just decades of silence finally loosening their grip. She asked me the question I never thought I'd hear. How did you do it? Not out of judgment. Not sarcasm. But curiosity. Longing. So I told her. Not everything. Not the whole ache of every night she rolled her eyes or slammed a door. But the parts that mattered. I told her about the dressing room. About the woman who said I needed my reflection back. About therapy. About the walks. The lipstick. The laughter I had to learn again. I didn't tell her to feel guilty. I told her because sometimes, daughters need to know their mothers struggled too. Over time our rhythm changed. Not all at once. Not like a movie where everything ends with a hug and a montage. But slowly, earnestly, she started following my page. Left a comment once. This one made me cry. I love you. She brought me coffee on Saturday mornings. Asked if I could help her pick out outfits. Said, you know style better than I do. One evening, she curled up beside me on the couch and said, I thought I had to be everything you're not. But I'm starting to realize, I'm you. And that's not a bad thing. I didn't cry. I just wrapped my arm around her and said, it never was. Then one morning I got an email. A women's group, local, respected, built for mothers and daughters, was hosting a summit. They'd read my blog. They'd seen my page. They wanted me to speak. I almost said no, but Ava overheard me reading the invitation aloud and said, Mom, if you don't do this, I will. So I said yes. The event was packed. Rows and rows of women. Some with babies in slings. Some with silver in their hair. Some with daughters beside them. Awkward, scrolling their phones, not knowing how deeply this day might mark them. I stepped onto the stage in a simple black dress. Hair pulled back. Lips soft rose.
No flash.
Just presence. I spoke not as an expert. Not as a woman who had overcome. But as someone who had lived. And had learned. I used to think motherhood was about erasing yourself to make space. But the truth is, our children don't need a ghost with a full fridge. They need a woman with a pulse. A mother who shows them that broken doesn't mean finished. That starting over doesn't mean failure. And that healing doesn't always come with applause. Sometimes it just comes with a quiet breath, and the courage to keep standing. When I stepped down, the room was silent for a moment. Then came the applause. Slow. Steady. Growing. I scanned the crowd. And there she was. Ava. Second row. Hands clapping. Tears in her eyes. No phone in her hand. No performance on her face. Just my daughter. Standing. I didn't wave. Didn't point. I just looked at her. And she looked back. And in that gaze was something I had waited years to see. Recognition. Respect. And something softer. Something sacred. Love. This wasn't the end of our story. This was a new page. We were rewriting it. Together. If this story moved you, if it made you angry, cry, or inspired you, leave a comment and tell me your thoughts. And hey, don't just subscribe, join our family. Turn on that bell so you never miss a story that needs to be told. To every woman who's ever been told to shrink, to stay quiet, to sit down. To every mother who gave so much that she forgot her own name. To the ones who were told they were too loud, too soft, too emotional, too much, or not enough. This is for you. I spent years folding myself into a shape that made other people comfortable. Years trying to earn a place at tables where no one had saved me a seat. Years mistaking invisibility for humility. Thinking that silence meant love. Thinking that martyrdom made me a better mother. But here's what they never tell you. Sacrificing yourself entirely does not raise stronger children. It only teaches them to ignore their own needs. And yours. You don't have to disappear to be a good mother. You don't have to erase yourself to be loved. And you are not just someone's mom. You are someone. I walked through fire. But I didn't walk out bitter. I walked out whole. Not perfect. Not untouched. But undeniable. Because I realized, every woman is a living archive. Of the love she gave, the joy she buried, the words she swallowed, and the power she forgot she had. So this is for the woman folding laundry at midnight, For the one staring into a mirror she no longer recognizes. For the woman whose daughter won't return her gaze. You are not embarrassing. You are not irrelevant. You are not invisible. You are becoming. And becoming looks messy. It looks quiet. It looks like walking alone. Until one day, you don't have to. Because when they told me I was an embarrassment, I didn't shout back. I didn't crumble. I became the woman they'd spend years trying to understand. The one they'd eventually admire. Not in spite of what I'd been through, but because of it. If this story moved you, if it made you angry, cry, or inspired you, leave a comment and tell me your thoughts. And hey, don't just subscribe, join our family. Turn on that bell so you never miss a story that needs to be told. Because someone out there, right now, is waiting to hear their story told through yours.